the sort of higher things that weren't brought up, like the creator side of things. Something that came up in tomorrow's Wild Man Beyond discussion, discussion on the James Cameron script. But also the psychological imprint of returning to the hell he escaped from is missing. You know, David Morrell and I talked about that last week, and you'll get the chance to hear that full interview over the weekend. It's also sad that they didn't bring back Stephen Chang's Tay, back into the equation. Just a lot of stuff just kind of felt like they didn't want to explore it, or were too lazy to explore it. And I'm not knocking the movie in any way, because, like I said, I've seen it 1,000 times, and it's breathtaking every time. But now noticing these little elements that I didn't get a chance to see before, it could have been a lot better. Regarding the great James Cameron, the full subject of tomorrow's show featuring Wild Man Beyond, James Cameron and Sly wrote the original screenplay for the sequel. And Cameron insists he provided the action, while Sly added the politic kind of side of things. You know, Cameron was working on the script for Aliens in the process as well. It's rumored that production on the Terminator was put on hold while they uprooted Rambo First Blood Part 2. In my opinion, reading that script, I could see it, like as a James Cameron style film in my head. That brilliant James Cameron. I can imagine this movie, but with the brilliant James Cameron cinematography that makes all of his movies such wonderful. And visual viewing experience, like I could just imagine that in my head. It was pretty fucking cool. And so like in reading that script, I could see James Cameron's style in my mind, with that great Goldsmith score bringing things off the page to life. And Rambo even teased the crossbow weapon, which would later resurface in the script novelization for Rambo 3, Rambo of Arabia. We're going to go in depth with that tomorrow with Wild Man Beyond. Unfortunately, due to time restraint, I didn't have time to write a solid play-by-play review for that. I've read it twice, once about 11 years ago, and once at last Christmas. So I didn't really have time to write a new review for the script for James Cameron's The Mission. Unfortunately, I should have done it back at Christmas, but I was just running around trying to get everything in order. It was very hectic last Christmas. A lot was going on, as I'm sure a lot will be going on a lot will be going on this year. But due to time restraints, I didn't have time to write a play-by-play review. So on tomorrow, tomorrow I'm pretty much going to go on memory, like what we recorded. I went on memory, but we'll post the official script with the discussion. And I just want to thank Isaiah for taking the time to come on the show and help out with all this, because I would have had to cram study 79 to 111 pages over breakfast this morning. So Wild Man saves the day yet again. Thank you. Because there was a lot of stuff I kind of forgot about, that I kind of remember now more. But yeah, so you can make up your own mind about it, and it will be that much more fresh and spoiler free. There is a lot of spoilers, don't get me wrong, in tomorrow's show. We talk about pretty much the whole thing, but the real ins and outs of it, the real James Cameron eloquence, and just the spirit and everything involved. Read that script. That script is phenomenal. And tomorrow, when we jump into James Cameron with Wild Man Beyond, we're going to have that script in the description below, so you can make up your own mind about James Cameron's The Mission. But let me tell you, it's no rollover. It's the real deal. It's the real first envisioning of First Blood Part 2. It's breathtakingly fantastic. fantastic, sorry. And speaking of fantastic, brings us to the Travolta connection. And John Travolta was in fact up for the role of Rambo's sidekick Brewer. In Cameron's vision of this iconic sequel, I gotta say I'm really curious to see how this would have turned out, how it would have played out, because reading it I could really see John Travolta in my head, and it's tailor-made for him. And I think it could have worked because the dynamic and relationship was solid. And unfortunately, possibly fortunately, in the end, the powers that be delivered the axe. You know, the buddy concept was thrown out, and Rambo's crazier side also had hit the bricks. Unfortunately, because it would have been a really nice dynamic. When you read it, it comes across really man, what's the word I'm looking for? It comes off really brilliant, and the characters really touch you. You know, from the way they are in the beginning to the way they are at the end. You know, like the shapeshifter kind of deal. You know, like how Ko shapeshifts more in this script and in the novel, actually, way more than in the movie. And John Travolta, his character has that same kind of primordial shift. So that would have been really, really, really nice to see. You know, also I gotta wonder if Cameron saved the opening of this movie for the psychiatric hospital and ways that Linda Hamilton, Sarah Connor were played out in Terminator 2 Judgment Day. As you know, Wildman will point out on tomorrow's show, there's even a little True Lies in there too, and there's some really cool stuff that made it from that script to David Morrell's novelization as well. I'm really happy Morrell went the route he went with. He made it completely visionary. Yeah. So this brings us to the buddy genre, and I want to know what you guys think about Rambo crossing over into the buddy genre. You know, we kind of slightly, you know, with Troutman and Rambo 3, a lot in the deleted scenes actually from Rambo 3 as well. We got a glimpse of the teamwork and the buddy kind of side of things in Rambo 3, like that deleted sniper scene and you know, the stuff at the end that was cut out. You know, we didn't get a lot to see the badass side of Troutman, you know, because, you know, and I understand, okay, well, Troutman was older, he couldn't do all that certain stuff, but he did train Rambo, and Rambo is just as badass, and I think Rambo was almost maybe even older than Troutman in the last Rambo, and he fucked everybody up. He fucked everybody up, man. So I could just imagine what like a Rambo Troutman movie would be like. Even if we got to see a prequel, what a Rambo Troutman prequel or a Baker team could have been like, you know, like a buddy kind of movie. It kind of, Rambo 4 almost did it with the mercenaries, but not quite. And, you know, even in this movie, there's a little buddy kind of thing going on with Ko, and eventually it turns into something more. You know, it turns into a love interest, and in the script it's even more developed, because you know, they talk about her having a son, and you know, her father being killed, her brother being sent to America with her son, and her husband being killed. So we see a big level of difference with Ko, because Ko wants to come to America, wants to marry Rambo. But we'll save that because when we get to the Morrell Rambo of the Apes, because Morrell brings her character up completely 10 more notches higher than that. And we get to see the badass, vindictive Ko that we that we only see a slither of behind those eyes in the sequel. The one, it gets me like when she's listening to Rambo say, when she's like, what do you want? And he's like, to win, to survive. That look in her face, that she's not as innocent as she seems. And we're going to find out more. Like, her name means virgin. And there's a lot of jokes. And like the characters just... The character development coming soon is just, from the novelization and from the script are just phenomenal, because they just really bring the character to that extra dimension, that extra place. And it really sucks that they didn't capitalize on it in the movie. The movie's great, but it could have been like the Rambo for all seasons. And also this includes crossovers, with Rambo and different characters. What do you guys think? What other franchises would you like to see Rambo cross into? Wild Man Beyond wrote an amazing Jack Reacher crossover. For free share, it's out there on YouTube right now. We're going to be talking about that in Season 4 as well. And, I would love to see like a Rambo John Matrix from Commando crossover. They could easily formulate a Contra type of movie based on that. And we'll get into that actually pretty soon too for DJ Donnelly. He wasn't able to make it on the show, but we'll be talking about his Rambo Commando Dream crossover and his Contra ideas, and the various Contra ideas that are going around, and my Contra ideas, and Wild Man's Contra ideas, and everything like that. So moving on, we're going to talk about the Kevin Jarrah script. And this script that would evolve would include Kevin Jarrah's attempt that I would believe became the overall shooting script for Rambo First Blood Part 2. And I've read some of it, or most of it, but it's paper thin as fuck. And I guess that's something me and Morel will also be sharing in our review this weekend. Definitely the weakest link in this whole ordeal. It would, however, become the shooting draft for the sequel, and is a lot like reading the stenographer IMDb scriptation for First Blood. That was just horrible because it had so many mistakes, not just spelling mistakes, but actually phrasal mistakes and stuff like that from lines in the movie. I remember I actually posted a scene from that on my Facebook at one time, talking about, the scene where Rambo breaks down in front of Troutman at the end of First Blood, and it was completely off, out of tune. It was completely not very much what Sly had said, and if anything was a disservice to Sly's brilliant monologue at the end of that movie. So I guess the only really interesting addition to the 80-page-ish Jarrah script was that there was a First Blood montage before the opening rock quarry explosion sequence. Nothing much, just a few lines. Like I said before, it's interesting, but nothing to write home about. So if you can find that script online, you'll be able to read a tiny, worthless First Blood montage. Sorry. A couple of, stray. It strays a bit, but nothing too much from pretty much the movie. As far as casting the sequel is concerned, I'm going to go into the overall general casting when we get to the movie review of the sequel itself. I think the biggest addition here is Ko Bao, played by the wonderful Julia Nixon, aka Julia Nixon Soul, from my sister's whereabouts in Hawaii, her hometown. A lot of Vietnamese actors and actresses from the film were actually extras selected from local restaurants because they couldn't find any Vietnamese people. Dolph Lundgren was originally supposed to play Podolsky, but once Sly realized him to be the villainous Ivan Drago from Rocky IV,